Knob Creek, a leader in the small batch bourbon category, has just released a new bourbon and rye blend, also known as the Bourbon Times Rye Kentucky Blended Straight Whiskey. The limited edition release combines Knob Creek 9-year-old bourbon and Knob Creek 7-year-old rye whiskey into one unique blend that embodies the best of both whiskey worlds, according to Knob Creek.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Now, a bourbon and rye blend isn't really something new, but these blends tend to get a lot of attention, especially when it's from a big distiller like Jim Beam. Let's see how it is. If it's worth the pickup, stay right here. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C. from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like, subscribe, and do all the things to help me keep climbing to that 100,000 subscriber milestone. Appreciate the support. So a quick history about Knob Creek. Knob Creek 9-year was first released in 1992 by master distiller legend Booker Noe, with the mindset for Knob Creek to recapture a pre-prohibition style bourbon with more time spent in the barrel and bottled at a higher proof. At least, a higher proof for 1992. The bourbon is also named for the creek that ran behind Abraham Lincoln's childhood home in Kentucky, so Knob Creek. Now, in recent years, we've seen Jim Beam add a few different Knob Creeks to their portfolio. We have the Knob Creek 12-year, which is a permanent edition and one of my favorite bourbons that they've ever come out with. And they've also launched two limited releases, the Knob Creek 15 and 18-year-old bourbons. It's also continued to build their rye portfolio with the addition of their 7-year age statement, and also released the Knob Creek 10-year rye whiskey this year as well. So this new limited release is bottled at 113 proof, with 30% of the blend being their 9-year bourbon and 70% being their 7-year rye. It's available now in limited quantities for a retail price of only 45 bucks. All right, let's dive into it. Here we go. So I was really interested to see how on the nose this would kind of present itself. Would it be more of a rye forward whiskey or more of a bourbon? And I actually think it's coming off more as a rye in the beginning. There's a little bit more spice and definitely a lot of orange peel here. There's definitely some mintiness, a little bit of like that black tea that you get from a rye whiskey up front on the nose. But man, that the citrus note has gotten stronger more and more every time I go back to this. It definitely comes off like a rye whiskey to me, or closer to a rye on the nose. But, if you put this in a blind tasting, this could definitely trip some people up because, it could just come off like a high rye bourbon, to be honest. So, all right, let's give it a try. And that's exactly how it comes off on the palate, like a high rye bourbon. A lot of spice, citrus, black pepper, but there's that underlying Knob Creek caramel, vanilla, and just a little bit of that nuttiness too that's there as well, that we all kind of know and love from Jim Beam and Knob Creek. But yeah, this is a nice little blend. Even on the palate, I still think that the rye comes a little bit more forward. Now remember, the blend is 70% rye, so there's definitely a little bit more of an influence of the rye whiskey here, I think. Well, I think the bourbon, the 30% of the bourbon blend is just in there to kind of mellow things out a little bit, make it a little bit sweeter on the finish, which I think it does. But it makes me wonder, if I already have these two bottles and I tried to blend it myself, could I get close to this? I guess, when you think about it, you would have to buy the 2 bottles to create this when you could just buy this bottle for 45 bucks. Maybe we'll test that out here in a second. Maybe I'll just try to blend. I'll do a 70-30 blend, or at least close to it, and see what we get. Yeah, the more you sip this, I think the more that, Jim Beam nuttiness comes out. Again, citrus, rye spices there. If anyone thought, this could be a nice sweet sipper, I think parts of it are, but I do think the 70% rye whiskey takes over more of the bourbon. And again, it makes sense because it's 70% of the blend. It's nothing surprising there, but I think I'm just a little surprised at how more rye forward it is, considering, the rye whiskey is kind of a, low rye. What am I saying? You know what I'm saying. Yeah, it's just a really nice combination of vanilla, caramel, some black pepper there, good spice, especially on the finish. I think that orange peel is still there, and the more you sip this, more of that Jim Beam nuttiness comes through. It's a nice little blend for $45. I don't mind it. I think it's a nice little spice-driven Knob Creek release. So let me see if I can replicate this blend and see how it comes out. So I actually couldn't find a 7-year rye. I don't think I've actually purchased the new age-stated 7-year rye whiskey, but what I do have is the 10-year rye. So let's see if this actually improves upon the blend. I'm just curious. All right, so 70% rye, 30% of the small batch bourbon. So I'm just gonna go, I mean, this isn't scientific measurements. I'm sure if I, get out my measuring tools, I can do it, but let's just see what happens here. And I'll pour about, there you go, 30% of that. Let's see if I get close or if the 10-year actually elevates a little bit more. So the blend that I just did actually has a little bit more of an oak presence too, and I think maybe it's because of that 10-year rye. However, it's pretty close. I get the citrus in here on the blend I made. I get that same orange peel I was getting in the actually Bourbon Times rye. All right, let's give it a try here. I think the 10-year has a little bit more of a rye heaviness. By the way, if nobody's had the Knob Creek 10-year rye yet, it's actually a really good rye for the money. All right, let's try the Bourbon Times rye blend. Yeah, this actually comes off a lot sweeter, especially when you compare it to this blend. I just think the 10-year rye actually just elevates it a little bit more, gives it more of an oak presence to it, not as much sweetness, the nuttiness is there. There are similarities here. There's a lot of similarities, but I do think the blend with the 10-year in it actually gives a little bit more of an oak presence to it. But all around, a nice little sweet blend. So would you rather buy 2 bottles to make this or just buy this? Let's go to a final breakdown. All right, final breakdown on the Knob Creek Bourbon Times rye. Price here, $44.99, call it $45. Secondary market value, have not seen these at all. Availability supposedly is limited, although I walked into Party Source down in Cincinnati and they had a whole mess of these. Value for this is high because I think there are a good amount of brands when we do see these that use that blend to their advantage marketing wise, and what follows is a high price tag. So the fact that this is under $50 from a big distiller, Jim Beam has a tendency to price things really well for the most part. So I think this being under $50, makes it a high value. The most I pay here is going to be retail. While I do like this blend, it's nothing mind-blowing. I think 45 bucks is exactly where it should be. Alternatives for this one. An alternative that I think might surprise you is the Sagamore Cask Strength Rye, because that is a blend of low rye and high rye. And I do think there are similarities here in that flavor profile. Obviously, nothing short of just buying the 2 bottles of Knob Creek 7-year rye and Knob Creek 9-year small batch bourbon and just blending it yourself. But honestly, all those options are gonna cost you more than just buying this for 45 bucks. And lastly, is this a skip, a try before you buy, or a buy and back it up? I just think this is a really cool, fun release from Knob Creek. It saves people from having to, buy 2 bottles to have this blend. I don't know, does it seem a little gimmicky to you guys? And let me know down in the comments, but we've seen a lot of bourbon rye blends before. I mean, Wild Turkey did it with their Forgiven. Then they came out with a Master's Keep called Unforgotten, which they were charging over $200 for. So this being $45, even though, yeah, you could see it as a little bit gimmicky, I like it. I think it tastes good. I think it's a buy for $45. It's a cool release. I'm actually excited to maybe try this in a little bit of a cocktail situation. That combination of sweet spice, it has a nice little finish overall, some citrus. This might be really good in an old fashioned. I don't know, but I think for $45, it's worth the pickup because I do think it's kind of a cool release and it tastes good. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review for the new Knob Creek Bourbon Times Rye Blended Straight Whiskey. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. And if you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this one. If you've gotten a chance to try this one yet. Do you like it? Do you think it's, you'd rather just blend it at home yourself? Let me know down in the comments. Always love hearing from you. And as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. So cheers. I'll see you next time right here on The Master and Drum. Cheers, folks.